2026 conference announcement, and we are setting up for YouTube Live. And we'll be streaming here in just a second. All right, and we are ready to go. So, welcome to the 2026 faculty announcement for the Willamette Writers Conference. My name is Kate Ristaw. I'm the Executive Director of Willamette Writers, and with me we have Maren Anderson, the President of Willamette Writers. Maren, how's your evening going?
So far, so good. Yeah. Had some lovely food, but now it's time to do this exciting thing.
Yes, and the good news is Maren just met a whole bunch of faculty that we're going to introduce you all to tonight. But before we do, Maren, can you tell us a little bit about Willamette Writers and what makes the conference great?
Willamette Writers is the oldest and largest direct writing association in the Pacific Northwest. And our mission is to serve writers at all different levels and to create a community of writers, because it's a myth that you have to suffer alone in the dark to be a writer. We don't like that myth. And it's community, craft, and career in that order. And the conference is great because it combines all three of those things. It's heavy on the community. I love it. I call it summer camp for writers. I just love it because I meet all of my friends there, and I meet new friends there. And it goes in there with the craft, because all of these lovely people that we're going to introduce you to and more are experts in their particular corner of the writing world, and will illuminate us with all of their wisdom. And then it goes into the career too, because the secret is that the community is the career, with the craft. And the people that you meet at places like this conference are the people who are going to be helping you with your career.
Thank you, Maren. And one of the people that I actually met at the Willamette Writers Conference was Maren. So Maren and I got to know each other better at the Willamette Writers Conference by standing around telling each other to talk to people and eat cookies. So
Yep.
those are all
Yep.
those are all solid writing activities.
Totally.
But I teeter up very easily with what makes the Willamette Writers Conference great. And what makes the Willamette Writers Conference great is all of the faculty and all of the other writers and community that you're going to meet throughout the conference. So this year we have Jane Friedman joining us as our Saturday keynote. So Jane Friedman is basically the publishing queen. She knows everything about the industry, how the industry works, and will give us lots of tips and advice on what the publishing market looks like right now, which can be helpful for writers as we're thinking about that publishing life. But one of the other things that Maren and I have talked a lot about is it's not just about your publishing life, it's also about your writing life, and how you keep your writing life joyful and engaged, and how you can feel supported in all the things you're doing as you're digging down into the work. So we were hoping that in a moment here, we'll bring up a couple of our faculty members so you can meet them and get to know them better. We'll bring up in just a moment, I'm warning them a little bit, we'll bring up Eric Witchey and Allie Hall. So Eric Witchey and Allie Hall are going to come up in a second, and you'll get to know a little bit about them, and we'll have them introduce themselves and talk about their work, because they're definitely faculty members that you're going to want to know. So first up, we'll have one of our favorite people is Eric Witchey. So Eric Witchey, let's see. Here you come. Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Hi. So we have a plot spoiler for everybody that Eric Witchey is actually doing a master class at this year's conference. And there's a very specific reason why we bring Eric back for a master class, is because Eric, you crush it every time. Like I sit in a workshop and I learn so much, and my notes are wild. I'll share my notes with you sometime from the workshops that I've been sitting in on. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'd like to see that. Maybe I'll remember what I said. God, I don't know what to say. I'm Eric Witchey. I write fiction. I've sold science fiction, fantasy, horror, literary, romance, erotica, outdoor adventure, crime, young adult, experimental, inspirational, visionary, and magical realism, which is 180 short stories and 5 novels and 2 collections. Yeah. Basically, that means I sit in a chair all day and fiddle with little black squiggles in a row. So, God, what am I doing now? Lately, I've been writing a fantasy novel for no particular reason. I just started writing it one day and I liked the characters and said, let's see where this goes. And then I'm doing parallel play sessions, which is about 20 hours of keyboard time with a group of people every week. And then I'm going to be doing a writer in residence in the last weekend of April in Newport on the Oregon coast. Another one in October. I'm probably going to be at the Right on the Sound conference in Edmonds in October. Um, and I've been teaching fiction fluency classes, which are very intense. It's a year-long program that I'm probably not going to do anymore. I've been doing it for over a decade, and I'm kind of burned out on it. But I'll be doing shorter versions of that over the coming year or two. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks at a time instead of a month until instead of a year at a time. Um,
And we'll
so
bring
anyway, that's what I've
we'll
been
bring
doing.
we'll bring Allie up here in just a second too, Allie. But Eric, we always ask you for some piece of kind of writing advice or suggestion or things that you're working on. I wonder though, for some people in the audience who actually might not be familiar with writing residencies, like what are you looking for when you're going for a writing residency, or what are some of the things that people might need to know if they're trying to find a
I
good one?
don't I don't really go for them. I get asked to do them. So, this is uh this I was asked to help with this one. And what I look for is fun. I want to go away and write, and I want to be with people that are going to be fun to be around and are going to enjoy the fact that they're writing. Um, that's what I look for. I look for the opportunity to go and have fun with people who are creative and craft oriented. I'm big on being craft oriented. I'm much more interested in how it works than what happens to it after I wrote it, which is probably not how you should be. It's kind of how my brain works. So, you know, I can't really tell people what they should look for because they should look for what works for them. Um, I would say, do spend some time thinking about what you want before you just willy nilly apply. You can make yourself really miserable going to spaces where you're not going to enjoy yourself or get the results that you are looking for.
And you know what? Like when we talk about going to spaces where you're going to enjoy yourself, Allie has been somewhere really great. Allie, introduce yourself and then tell us where you are because we heard great things.
I am in the boarding lounge at the Phoenix airport. I spent the last 2 days at Mariners spring training and then the 3 days before that at Joshua Tree. So I am sweaty, I might dirty, boarding in about 10 minutes and very happy to talk to everybody. Let's see, this is my first year at Willamette and I'm very, very excited. I am a novelist and I've also published a lot of essays and short stories, but I'm primary interest is my interest is literary fiction. And so my first novel, I have another one in the process of being placed right now, but my first novel is called As Far as You Can Go Before You Have to Come Back. And so it is about a child sexual trauma survivor who steals a bunch of money and runs away to Asia when she's a teenager, and she has to figure her life out after that point. And so I'm not afraid of anything in teaching. You can't bring up a topic that it worries me. I will be able to help you. And I'm teaching a little bit about how you get your published work in short pieces and then structuring that into how to apply, to agents and editors because you now have the resume to do so. So that's me.
Perfect. And we'll look forward to seeing you when you're back in Portland.
Thank you so
Have
much, everybody.
totally
Take
have a good
care.
flight.
Fly safe,
Thanks.
Ellie.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
And Eric, we'll see you back at the conference in
Woohoo!
just a few months. It comes up faster than we think.
Ah, it does. It's really no time at all. I better start tomorrow.
It's gonna be good. We can't wait to
Bye
hear more about
bye.
the fantasy novel too.
We'll look forward to meeting everyone.
All right. Thank you, Eric. And so we have Eric is sneaking off screen in just a second here. But one of the things that we've seen over time with Willamette writers and is that the faculty continue to be like basically a source for knowledge, but also a source for like support and that you can learn from. And and share stories with. So, Marin, as you've been coming to the Willamette Writers Conference for a while, who are some of the faculty that you've seen throughout time that you love to work with and talk with? But before I answer that question, where I have you answer that question, I'm going to tell you that next up is going to be Brian Garrison and Janae Bauer. So, Marin, tell us what's up.
Yeah, even though you gave me a minute there to think about it, I'm having a hard time choosing one.
I know, right?
Oh gosh, we had Dong Wang Song on at the conference several years ago, and I remember that one in particular because he was doing a workshop. They were doing a workshop on first pages, which I've been writing for a while. I thought I got first pages. Pages are fine, I don't know. But the thing that he did in particular that was helpful for me was that he described how the first page has to have the voice of the book. And that's where I discovered the voice of the book that landed me in Agent. And so that was, even though I went in thinking of the first pages, I don't need this workshop. I totally learned something that changed the entire course of the novel when I was writing. So yeah, it's a long way of saying you're never too old to learn something new.
I love it.
There's so many ways of examining craft, right? So that was a big one that stuck out in my head.
And me personally, as I've been always constantly trying to make my poetry better, I'm really excited for the two faculty that we're going to talk to and introduce next. So, Brian, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself, talk about what you do and your work.
Yeah, so hello, I'm Brian U. Garrison, or Bug the Writer. I am president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association, which may hint at some of the topics that I write about with my own poetry, which includes things like spaceships and robots. Yeah, I have a plan in the works for my next chapbook is titled Jukebox at the End of the Universe, so starting to see what that might look like in a printed form. And then my recent chapbook was Micro Poetry for Microplanets, short little haiku-sized poems singing the praises of Pluto and some of the other tiny little rocks that are circling the sun with us.
It sounds fantastic. And Janae, you're going to have a lot to talk about with Brian. So Brian and Janae, what do you write and what are you working on?
Well, great to meet all of you. I'm excited for this conference. So I started out as a scientist, actually. Didn't even think that I could be creative or imaginative. Then I went for a Master of Fine Arts and discovered this whole world of cross-disciplinary engagement. So I have visual artist envy. I do great little stick figures, but that's the extent of it. So I'm just obsessed with looking at global art and writing ekphrastically. So the first time I committed ekphrasis was over 30 years ago. And since then, I've been writing ekphrastically, although my specialty for my writing life is poetic ekphrasis. So I wrote the craft book on ekphrastic writing called The Ekphrastic Writer. Really proud of this. My newest collection of ekphrastic poems just came out last week, and I dedicated it to a work by one painter, Andrew Wyeth. And then also I'd like to mention that I'm a long time, for the last 10 years, I've been an assistant editor at Boulevard Magazine out of St. Louis. So shout out to the great work they do there. And so my specialties are building community, as not just among writers, but also cross-disciplinary communities and craft. I love to focus on the process of writing and deep looking. So
Then you're going to love this question that's popping up from Valerie over in chat is, what exactly is ekphrastic writing for people who might not know?
Yeah, so the definition that I live by that came out in 93 by James A.W. Heffernan is the verbal representation of visual representation. However, it's a little more complex than that because ekphrasis actually comes from the Greek meaning to describe. So if you are working on descriptive writing, you're actually writing ekphrastically. And if you're a reader of beautiful descriptions, you're actually reading ekphrastic writing. So, description is obviously really important in literature today. But ekphrastic writing, ekphrastic poetry, fiction, and ekphrastic nonfiction are these new sort of movements, new as of pretty much like the mid 80s. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, and that's a good explanation, and it'll help set people up as they think about your class too and your workshop at the conference. And Brian, when you think about some of those forms and what kind of inspires you? I think I have an idea because some of it might be behind you, but what
Yeah,
inspires you in
certainly
your poetry?
space comes to mind for me a lot, thinking about big picture things. But yeah, in terms of my earlier book was New Yesterdays, New Tomorrows. So I think one of the things that I dwell on a lot is kind of now that we've got perspective on the people that were trying to build like hot air balloons or the first airplanes and that kind of stuff, like living in that mindset of, oh, what is tomorrow going to look like? And we know now what tomorrow looks like for them, but seeing kind of like that raw, like creative space where they don't know what's going to happen, but they're building something and going out and trying to fly this airplane. So looking back at like the past is always kind of an interesting thing to look at in terms of, well, what might the future look like for us? And I think the AI people want you to think that the future is here, but I think the reality is things move very slowly. But we try to make it a little bit better, bit by bit.
I love it. That's a great way of saying it.
And we still have to live through it.
And the question came up, so I'll ask you, but then I'll give you time if you want to do it later in the call tonight. But one of the people in the audience is wondering if either of you would like to read one of your poems to wrap us up at the end of the night. So if you have a short piece that you want to share in a little bit, throwing it out there, you can decide.
Yeah,
Possibility. Pressure on
definitely.
camera. But I'll let you step off camera for a little bit and make some decisions, and then we'll bring you back up at the end to wrap us up if you're okay with it. All right, so we'll see them back, and you can thank all of our friends over in chat. They said we want to hear the poems. Um, so we'll send off Brian and Janae, and we're going to bring on Glenn Eric Hamilton and Susie Vitello very shortly. So one of the other things that I loved last year, actually, Marin, was we got to hear from Charlie Jane Anders. And Charlie Jane Anders, actually, her book, which is not very far from me. Oh no, it's up in my office. I can't run up there right now. But Never Say You Can't Survive. It actually came out of a Willamette Writer's keynote
Yeah.
a few years ago. And so she thought about it, she wrote about it, and ended up with this amazing writing book. And when she came back last year, she gave us some really great tips on the writing life too. So, Marin, if you want to talk, do you have a tip that you can give some writers while we're bringing up Glenn Eric Hamilton and Susie Vitello?
To tips on their writing life. I am a big proponent of the terrible first draft. It is once I've read not Lori Moore, who wrote that, who wrote the Bird by Bird,
Anne Lamott.
Anne Lamott. Once I read that book and I internalized the terrible first draft, it was really freeing for me because before I thought I had to write the great American novel, even though I'd never written a novel before, and B, that it had to be perfect when it came out of my head. And once I realized that no, you can make a terrible first draft and then make it better, that freed me up and made me so much more prolific, made me less precious about the writing too.
And the funny thing was, when we were chatting before with the faculty, Glenn Eric Hamilton, you were talking about the number of books that you have coming out and things that you're working on. So tell us a little bit about what you've been working on and where people can find more about you too.
Hi everyone. Welcome. Lovely to see you all, virtually or otherwise. I'm Glenn. I write mystery thrillers. That may sound like I'm conflating two genres because I am. I love a good whodunit. And I love a good action scene, and there's no reason they can't both be in the same story because we get to create our own worlds. It's one of the delightful things about writing is we don't have to feel constricted too much by what the expectations are of a particular genre. I've, in addition to writing mystery thriller novels and a couple of short stories, I've taught at a few mystery and thriller centric organizations like Thriller Fest, Sisters in Crime, Mystery Writers of America, and a lot of regional mystery groups as well. This will be my first Willamette Writers Conference, and I'm very excited and already very impressed by the conference and the faculty and how it's being run. So I'm just very excited for the end of July. Can't come soon enough, although hopefully not too soon, because I want to take my class that I'm preparing and vamp it up even that much more for this conference, because I think everyone will be excited to be there and will want the very best. So really looking forward to that and delighted to join you all.
Thank you, Glenn. And we're excited to hear more about you. And also, just so you all know, at the conference, you can also get books. So you're definitely going to want to go and look through some of Glenn's books and get some ideas there too.
And I will be collecting others as well, because you can't come home from a conference without a big addition to the to be read pile, or the to be read room, as it kind of is. Yeah.
It keeps going and going.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn, we're going to sneak you off so you can get off to good things, and we'll chat with Susie Vitello. But when we get to the conference, you and Susie are going to have some conversations as well.
Fantastic.
Because I think you're going to get along well.
All right.
So we'll sneak
Thanks
Glenn
so much.
off the camera.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Good night. And we have Susie Vitello coming in. And Susie, you've been working on, you have a new novel coming out as well. Do you want to tell us what's going on with that new novel?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Kate, and thanks, Marin. So this novel actually came out in September. This is my 6th novel called The Bequest, set in Portland. It's my attempt at crime fic. But I tend to, if people say, what kind of books do you write? That's kind of the question, right? Always that people need to be prepared to answer. And I guess I've come up with Families in Peril, and this book, the Griftopia, is coming out in May. Very excited about this book. It features a multi-generational family who turn to hustle culture when their safety nets collapse. Sort of, one family's response to the disintegrating American dream kind of deal. So those are my books. I've got others. Oh, here comes one of the grandchildren. Hi, I'm on a webinar. You want to say hi real fast? Hi. This is my little guy.
Hello, how are you?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Anyway, when I'm not wrestling with the grands, I work as a developmental editor. I have the great privilege of working with a lot of actually Portland writers and some others that are far flung. But I'm also the managing editor of a press called Sibylline Press, and we publish women over 50. So that's what I do. That's my day job now.
That's so great.
I'm excited to be part of this faculty too.
And we're completely excited to have you come back to the conference because one of the things that we know is you give an incredible amount of critique and guidance and support. And so thank you for coming back and sharing your skills and your knowledge and your joy with us.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll sneak you off camera and we're going to bring up a couple of other writers, and they're going to be writers that are coming from very different areas. So we're bringing over Carrie, and Carrie Barnum will be up in just a second, and then we're going to bring up Valerie Sasaki. So as Carrie Barnum comes up and Valerie Sasaki comes up, I will tell y'all that Valerie is a writer, but she also lives in a world of numbers and taxes. So we'll talk with Valerie in just a second, and we'll introduce you to Carrie. So Valerie, you have a book, and I'm legally obligated to ask you about your book. So tell us all about your book, and then tell us what you're up to and why you're here at the conference.
The published one or the unpublished one?
Let's do them both, because we always need to talk about what we're working on. So what's published and what's coming?
Yeah, so LexisNexis Publishers published my Oregon Estate Planning with Forms, which is a gripping read about estate planning. But no, it's stupidly expensive, so I don't expect anybody to buy it, but I had a lot of fun writing it. And then I wrote a fantasy novel that's set in basically a post-apocalyptic Pacific Rim involving a dragon family and all their drama. So I really enjoy writing, and it's been really fun to get to know folks through Willamette Writers.
I love that. The Dragon family and all their drama. So everyone is already working on what are their legal questions and tax questions that they're going to have for you.
Yeah, so I was listening when you and Marin were talking before, and you were talking about community, craft, and career. And, I think the ability to read a contract and understand what contracts are likely to come up in your career is a really important part of that. So that's what I'm going to be talking about at the conference.
It's incredible that what is in your contract can really determine both also where your career is going and what rights you're giving away and and how you can actually like build your career in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're building up our list of questions. And Carrie, good to see you. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Of course. Thank you. My name is Carrie Barnum. I am the owner of New Shelves Books, which is a PRM marketing company. And while I work with both traditionally and indie authors, I have a special place in my heart for indie authors. I actually wrote the book on it, Tough Love for Indie Authors. And so I really do help focus indie authors on how to publish professionally, how to get into bookstores and libraries, and how to expand their reach. So that's some of what I'll be talking about. Just very excited. I have heard such great things about the conference and very much looking forward to being there.
So Valerie, you have attended the Light Writers Conference before. So what tip can you give Carrie coming into the conference?
Oh
What's
my
something
gosh,
that
I
she
would
might
just
need to
say
know?
that first of all, hang out by Kate because Kate knows everybody. But then also, I just feel like people are really, really welcoming. And we're going to be at the Crown Plaza again this year, right?
Yep.
So there's that wonderful little atrium, and I just thought it was a great place to meet people and have some fun conversations about writing. And I just kind of sat down and introduced myself into various conversations, and people were very kind. So so we're looking forward to seeing you and all the first time folks. It's going to be great.
I love that. Actually, I love that you said you just sat down and talked to people because every time I go to a conference, that's what I do. I eat with someone different every time. I'm just like, oh, there's an open seat. Let's be
Yay.
friends. I've never yet had someone chase me off. So I think that's such always writers don't always start chatting right away, but they're such fun, friendly people, and it's fun to meet new people. So very
But I'll say
excited.
I'm an introvert too, and so the fact that I feel comfortable sitting down and talking to folks is quite something. So
Love it.
I love it. Well, you two are already going to be friends, so I'm excited that you're going to sit down next to each other at the conference and have some coffee. So I'll sneak you off, and we're preparing our legal and indie questions. And while you all head off, I also want to tell you that Carrie and there will be quite a other faculty members that are also teaching about indie writing at this year's conference. So you'll be able to take a track that's all devoted to being an indie author. And so Carrie's actually going to be teaching on distribution. So if you have questions on distribution, how Amazon, how some of the behind the scenes stuff works, Carrie is going to walk us through that and help us to address some of those issues that you might hit or come up against as an indie author. And I'm very happy to see who else just popped into the room too. So Dustin Morrow is here as well. And so in a couple of minutes, let's say a couple of seconds, I'm gonna bring Randall Jansen back up and I'm gonna bring Dustin Morrow in. And both Randall and Dustin are actually screenwriters and they're gonna talk a little bit about who they are. And a little bit more about themselves. And they're both two writers that I am excited to introduce you to tonight. So they'll come up on screen and talk a little bit about themselves and their work in a moment here. So Randall, good to see you.
Should I reply in a song? Then
you totally should, right? At the Willamette Writers Conference we have karaoke, so you can totally join us for karaoke.
Oh, that's a recurring nightmare that I have in my long and storied career. Am I up on base here?
You are up, and
Okay.
then Dustin can watch what you're doing, and then totally know the best way to introduce yourself that anyone has ever done in the entire history of.
I'm Randall Johnson. It's actually pronounced Johnson. It looks like Jansen. I bastardized it a long time ago when I got married. But this is my 41st year in the Writers Guild of America. So I just like, wow. So I've done a lot of various types of screenwriting. I did a little bit of video games, a little bit of television, but mostly feature length stuff. So I'm doing the workshops on adaptations, and am I doing the write the script? I mean,
Yep.
write the movie, not the script. Okay. So these are two workshops that I feel very passionate about. I love adapting IPs of all sorts. They're always a puzzle that's fun to put together, and it's very, very challenging, and no two are alike. Sometimes who you're writing about are alive. Sometimes they've been dead 100 years. Sometimes they're novelists. Sometimes they're not. And so it's always very interesting. I love it. But I've had I would say some exceptional experiences, which I want to part some of my experience on to everyone that would take that workshop and discuss and explore the challenges that every adaptation brings. And write the movie, not the script, is a particular thing for me where I'm teaching screenwriters, to break some rules. We're going to trespass upon the unspoken rule of you don't direct on the page. And I say, why, why not? So I'm going to reveal some secrets and techniques along that. Looking forward to it.
This is going to be a great class. And Dustin, you don't have to worry about what you're teaching because I think you and Randall are going to have a little bit to talk about here too in terms of the tips and tricks and what to break and what to not break. So Dustin, if you want to introduce yourself and then talk about something that you broke recently in your screenwriting.
Sure. My name is Dustin Morrow, and I'm a professor in the School of Film at Portland State University, where I
Oh,
teach
cool.
courses in screenwriting and digital cinema production and film history and film studies. And I'm an options screenwriter, produced screenwriter. I'm a filmmaker. I was a professional editor before I went back into academia. So that's how I kind of came to writing and directing, was through editing, which is really just writing with word or with images and sound. So it's all the same. And what else? I also write nonfiction. I wrote a book with the actress Kathleen Turner a couple of years ago about the relationship between actors and directors. And I've written textbooks about producing, about emerging media, about television production. So I'm a bit of a generalist. I do sort of a little bit of lots of different things, which is the way it works at the School of Film at Portland State, because we're not an enormous program, although we are the biggest production program in the Pacific Northwest in a university,
Cool.
which is very cool. But we're not like USC or UCLA or a huge industry school like that. So, it's a great thing for me because it means I get to teach a lot of different and within a lot of different disciplines and a lot of different genres. As a screenwriter of late, I've been really interested in genre, in looking at the application of genre theory to screenwriting and in genre subversion and looking at those rules, confirmation, thinking about the genre as a contract between the audience and the filmmaker, thinking about it as a sandbox where some of the toys already exist for filmmakers to play with, thinking about it as a avenue for using shortcuts to narrative advancement, allowing you to do a little bit more within the confines of a screenplay that has a limited page length, things like that. So I was just contacted by Kate a few days ago about joining this workshop, and so I have no idea what I'll be teaching, but it'll probably have something to do with genre screenwriting, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and what's funny is over in chat when you started talking about genre screenwriting, we had people getting excited.
Okay.
My my personal background is I'm also the president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, so I went, okay, let's talk about that. Randall, like when you think about genre screenwriting, you just zombies y soldados. That tell us a little bit about working in genre. Like,
Well, it's alive and well, and right now the horror genre is probably the silver bullet. You just keep shooting it and people will come, I mean, it's really great, but in the last decade, we've seen it reach like new heights though. It's really elevated. There's so many good horror films that I would a couple of them are nominated for, big time awards this year with Sinners and warriors and stuff. But you could argue that those are kind of genre mashups. They're not traditional horror films per se, and they actually um, they're metaphorical, allegorical, fascinating. Is really what they are. I love that kind of stuff because someone is pushing the limits on it. And really, that kind of mashup, I think is great. And so it's very thrilling for me to see something that doesn't fit squarely into the crosshairs of genre. That it's a hybrid, or like a mashup, I would say. And I just said, I mean, it's exciting because I know then that there's an audience out there for these kinds of things, and that's the only way that it's going to continue to grow, so I'm excited by what I'm seeing out there. But I mean, I started my very first film script that I wrote. My first effort to be commercial was a horror film back in 1982, and I'm actually maybe going to do a revision of it, here recently. But the mashup thing is a way to go. But I don't know whatever I'm going to be interested in. So I'm all over the map, which drives my representatives crazy because they don't know how to market me. And that's the problem that you're going to run up against. I think Dustin will probably have a lot to say about that because, when you kind of create a platypus of a story, it's like, well, how do we market this? What do we sell it at? How did they market Sinners? How did they market Warriors? Weapons. I mean, I got my W's mixed up, but how did they market that? That would be a very interesting thing to see for me now. And I know that they're doing a sequel to It Follows. It's called They Follow now, right? So what's that going to be about? How do you market that? These are all things that I think really interesting. But
and we're seeing coming up over in chat, there's already discussion about the genre contracts and breaking them, and the group wants to hear both of you talking in a Q&A about some of those pieces. So Dustin, when you think about breaking those genre contracts, or the genre contracts that we have with an audience or with a readership, like, can you give us some examples of what you mean when you say a genre contract, like, or something that comes up for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in film, especially like we'll take like Randall was mentioning horror. That's a genre that where you don't necessarily need movie stars. So it's an easier place to sell scripts and make low budget films that audiences will give a chance because the genre tends to sell the project rather than the talent. And horror fans are notorious for being like open-minded about watching just about anything or giving anything a chance. And I think the reason for that is if you promise to fulfill some of the expectations they have of your narrative while also promising to give them a few surprises along the way, that they'll be incredibly forgiving of any other sort of flourishes that you personally want to layer into your screenplay. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, Randall mentioned weapons. The people behind that project actually picked up one of my scripts recently.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's a script that does sort of exactly what Randall was talking about. It's sort of it promises one thing and then takes a few left turns, and part of it is just finding the right the people who understand what you're trying to do.
Hmm.
Like you said, Kate, it's sort of, it can be difficult to find the audience that will, and by audience, I mean the financiers that will understand exactly what it is you're trying to do because it can be tricky.
And one of those things that we do at the Line Writers Conference is we have the craft pieces of screenwriting, and then we also have those film career pieces. One of the things we do is a film roundtable, because the question that came up year over year with us, and Randall, like you've seen these questions come up too, of like, how do you actually fund your films? Like, how do you get things produced? Like, if you're trying to get your work out there.
Well, Dustin, there's a simple answer to that, isn't there? Follow the money wherever we can dig it up. I mean, especially now, the business is technically shrinking, especially with these big consolidations that are going on and stuff. But there's a lot of interest, a lot of money kind of out in the margins there are people that are kind of like, that wealthy dentist in Lake Oswego who's always wanted to fund a movie, just might, be interested in something that you
I'll
write.
see if they pop up in chat.
Yeah, please do. There's no pat answer to that. It's always the issue, and the process though is it takes a long time. It takes a long
So
time for the stars to align. It really
So
does.
relatedly, because Randall, you know this about me, that I could keep asking you a whole bunch of questions all night, but we're going to bring two more people up to finish
Mhm.
this out with some poems. So
Yeah, great.
Dustin and Randall now know each other as well, so you all are going to have some great conversations at the conference
I
too.
look forward to it, Dustin.
I just want to say I'm a big fan of Randall's, and I
Oh,
really like when I was not to make him feel old, but when I was a teenager, he wrote a movie called Dudes, which you can see over his right shoulder, which I absolutely love because it's just this talk about genre subversion. It's like a Western laced with like a punk rock ethos. It's a Penelope Spheris movie. It kind of feels like an Alex Cox movie. It's
yeah.
just such a fun, interesting movie that like it zigs when you think it's going to zag at every turn, and I just think it's a great movie, and it's really nice to meet you, Randall, and I really
Oh,
admire your work.
well, thank you very much, and I look forward to getting together and chatting. There's
Great.
a lot to talk about. So thank you.
The
Thanks,
good
Kate.
news is you're going to have time to do that, because apparently the chat has already set you up with a Q&A at the conference as
Oh,
well. So
okay, sweet.
so we'll get you all talking, and we look forward to seeing you at the conference this year. And coming up last to wrap us up in just a second, we'll have Brian and Janae. And something else I want to emphasize as we're coming back in, one of the things that I love year over year, and I've said it, is the faculty at the Willamette Writers Conference. We have people that are incredibly smart, incredibly talented, and are also here to support and help you as you build your career and as you find your writing life and find your passion and your space in publishing and what's working for you. And so we're bringing back up Brian and Janae, and in the traditional fashion of, if you announce you're a poet, people say, "Can we hear the poetry though?" So welcome back, Brian, and welcome back, Janae. And thanks for coming back in to give us a few more words to wrap up our night. So, Janae, did you want to go ahead and share some of your work or share a piece? And it's your time.
Well, I did want to share that in addition to a writer, I am a voracious reader. And when I read the chat, it said it asked specifically for Brian to read a short piece. So I just want to point that out. And so, Brian, I believe I should hand over this moment to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I assume that was because of the short little book. So I talked about how it celebrates the rocks that are circling the sun with us. And two of the ones that I really like from my book aren't actually directly about a specific rock. So this one is for the ones that don't have a name. Multitude of rocks, pictured and tagged for the books, but too tame to name. And then the illustration here. So Gowrie Savor did some lovely illustrations, has this telescope, and then there's, some things that are in there, but then there's like all of this around that the telescope isn't pointing at. And so this is for all of the undetected odds and ends here in the solar system. Silent through the darkness. Why do humans need to see? Swim undiscovered. Thank you.
You can't hear the chat snapping, but the chat is snapping. And Janae, I also get the pleasure when I'm hosting to get some more questions that are coming in. So there's another question of, could you share something, or do you have some work that you'd like to talk about? Because you
Oh,
also,
that's so sweet. I don't know who said that. Maybe it was my mom who chimed in, but yeah, that person deserves a tip jar. And Brian, it's so, and the thing that's so fun about these types of communities, even here virtually, is that Brian, you would never know this, but earlier this week I was a poet in residence up in Burlington, Washington with some middle schoolers. And one of the things that came up was titling poems. And I shared with them that I was in Alaska and I was traveling over this creek by bike. And I stopped and I looked at this creek, and it was such a beautiful creek. It just really moved me. But then I saw the sign of the name of the creek. And then I got livid mad because the sign, professional sign, said No Name Creek. And I was like, I know this creek has a name, and I'm not sure who is responsible for these signs, but like, I was ready to like call. And then years later, I figured out, turns out that there was a Tlingit name, but it hadn't been like understood. And now there's a brand new sign with the creek's proper Tlingit name in Alaska. So your little piece warms my heart. So I'm going to share this poem. This is actually the first time I'm reading out loud from this book, so thank you so much. So I'll read this little piece called, well, no, Sunflowers, influenced by Andrew Wyeth's painting called Sunflowers in 1982. Beyond the white house, I brushed between tree boughs, blue for sky. Beside it, whose siding of wood planks make linear shadows, 5 flowers have bloomed. Their shadows, like diluted ink blots, subject to interpretation. Their leaves, call the shape spade or green hearts twice as large as any human's. One flower I painted in profile, so that it could look in the window, through the house, and out the opposite window. Grandmother taught us that when flower petals have desiccated yellow in the summer sun, its seeds are ready for harvest. I imagined rubbing my hand over the flower head and seeds falling at my feet. Afterwards, we'd slice the stem open and study its cross-section under a magnifying glass. Looking closely is the best way to spend now. I'm not concerned with the passage of time. Today, I watched a spider scale a sunflower stem. It climbed and rested, and disappeared into the petals. I imagined the spider closing all its eyes to the softness of petal against tarsi. Paint flowers? I represent them. Will they be scraggly, menacing, majestic? I sometimes make them better, sometimes worse, sometimes a spider.
thank you, thank you. And thank you both for jumping up and giving us these amazing pieces. And lots of thoughts too about, we're looking forward to your workshops on ekphrastic poetry and then thinking about line breaks. Brian, I'm excited to hear more about line breaks too. So we'll see you at the Willamette Writers Conference in just a few short months. So we were saying that this year we're July 30th through August 2nd. We have those first few days where we're doing pitches and critiques online. And then we're at the Crown Plaza in downtown Portland and online on July 31st on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you can join either online or in person. This is not all we have tonight because we have just one more second that I want to show you because I think you need to see it. We have quite a few more faculty that you're going to meet over the conference and throughout the summer weekend. So over the long summer weekend, I'm going to show you on our conference website. We have our schedule is already up and rolling, and there are so many different activities, workshops, and things that you'll be able to go check out, and you'll be able to sit in on, for example, that editing toolbox workshop with strategies that actually work. You'll be able to pitch for film and TV. There's Valerie's class on legal contracts for writers. So after this, you can head on over to the Willamette Writers website and we'll actually start opening up registration. So if you actually go to the Willamette Writers website, you'll be able to register. If you give us about 5 minutes, we'll click a button. But you'll also be able to meet all the rest of the faculty, including our amazing keynotes like Christopher Diaz, who's giving us an opening poem, and a little bit of workshop time with him as well. And you'll be able to meet with him and work with him. He's a Grand Slam champion, and we'll have lots of great advice and digging down into the words with Brian Garrison. Again, there we see him. And we have quite a few other folks here. We have Courtney Hemmeister, who you might know for a lot of her humorous work, so she'll be giving us lots of great ideas there. There's Eric again, along with Fran Wild, and Fran is a well-known science fiction and fantasy author. There we see Glenn and Janae, and you'll recognize a lot of these faces as well as some new ones, like LaFoster Williams is going to be teaching us on leaving your legacy, writing your legacy, and we're excited to have LaFoster joining us. There we got Randall over on the right, as well as Randy Henderson I mentioned earlier. Randy is doing that workshop on staying happy in your writing life. So as you go through the next couple of weeks, take a look at the Willamette Writers Conference website, see what we're learning about this summer, who we're meeting, and we can't wait for you to join us. So as we wrap up the night, thank you to all of our faculty, and thank you to all of you for spending the evening with us, meeting new faculty, holding back from the conversations because Randall, Dustin, you know that there was a lot more that I wanted to talk about there and a lot more that we could have asked. But for tonight,